صباح الخير. باسم المعهد للشؤون العامة والدراسات الدولية بدي رحب فيكم اليوم على بكرة بهالندوة اللي بعتبرها أنا كتير مهمة شخصياً وكمان مع الزملاء للأسباب التالية. أولاً نحن على مشارف يوم أسود بتاريخ لبنان بعتقد وبتاريخ عاصمتنا بيروت، مش بعاد عن ذكرى 4 آب والانفجار اللي دمر مش بس مرفأ بيروت بس جزء من المدينة وروح المدينة كمان. مشان هيك أنا إذا بتسمحوا لي بدي أطلب منكم دقيقة صمت على ذكرى أرواح أو بذكرى أرواح الشهداء والناس اللي توفوا أو انجرحوا أو انخربت حياتهم بهذا النهار. بقى إذا فينا بس نبلش بهالطريقة، دقيقة صمت عملوا معروف. شكرا. كنت عم بقول انه هيدي الندوة اللي اردناها مع زملائنا من البيروت أوربان لاب وفرقاء تانيين بعتقد مهمة لعدة أسباب. أولاً للسبب نفسه، يعني موضوع إعادة إعمار المرفأ يلي هو موضوع يعني بيتقاطع عليه عدة إشكاليات. أول شيء الإشكالية التقنية، إنه دور المرفأ، دور أي مرفأ بعالم معولم بطريقة متزايدة بيلعبوا فيه المرافق أدوار مهمة جدا بالاقتصاد الدولي بما يسمى الكونكتيفيتي اليوم، بما يسمى العولمة كمان. دونك في موضوع تقني بعتقد رح نضوي عليه اليوم. في موضوع تاني له علاقة بالأوربانيزم، بالفن المعماري. اليوم يعني بشكل كمان متزايد بعدة مدن المرافق هي جزء لا يتجزأ من المدينة، من نسيجها الحياتي، من نسيجها الجمالي حتى. بس تعطيكم مثل، أنا كنت بشنغهاي من شهر ونص، بلدية شنغهاي زورتنا المرفأ وفرجتنا يعني الخطط والمخططات لل20 سنة الجاية، كيف استيعاب المرفأ داخل المدينة. وهذه النقطة الثالثة بعتقد كمان في جانب سوسيولوجي للموضوع اللي بدنا نتطرق له. المرفأ منه بس مرفق تقني للبضاعة وللتجارة وإلى آخره، هو جزء من خلينا نقول الإنشاء المعماري للمدينة، الجمالي، استيتيك، أوربانيست إلى آخره. المرفأ هو مكان الناس فيها تروح عليه، فيها تترابط مع البحر. وهذا الموضوع الرابع بركي كمان الأهمية، بركي جاد بيعرف أكثر منا بهذا الموضوع. ما بعرف إذا أنتم بتعرفوا بس بيروت عايشة مع المرفأ إشكالية ما انحلت من 120 سنة، من وقت إنشاء المرفأ والانتداب الفرنسي. البيرتي بيعرفوا هالشيء، وأنا بيروتي بحب هالمدينة، بيعرفوا إنه كان في موضوع كيفية ربط بيروت كمدينة ببحرها، بوجهتها البحرية وبمرفقها، وهذا موضوع ما انحل من 120 سنة. ونحن اعتبرنا، أو على الأقل المقال يلي كان نوعا ما شرارة هذا اللقاء اليوم، مقال جاد ثابت بالأوريون، ضوى على هذا الموضوع. لا تكرهوا شرا لعله، ما بدي أقول خير بس مناسبة أو فرصة. انفجار مرفأ بيروت وكيفية إعادة أعماره بترجع بتفتح هيدي الفرصة، بركي نفكر كيف ننتهز هيدي النافذة نقول لإعادة ربط مرفأ بيروت ببيروت وبيروت ببحرها. لكل هالأسباب أنا كتير سعيد وكتير مبسوط إنه قدرنا ننظم هذا اللقاء على مرحلتين، اليوم وبعد بكرة. بشكر أكيد الزملاء والشركاء بيروت أوربان لاب على رأسهم ومنى the two مناز، اللي عايش بالأيوبي بيعرف هالعبارة the two مناز، منى فواز ومنى حرب. بشكر جاد ثابت على أول شيء إطلاق الشرارة لهذا الموضوع، لمساهمته بتنظيم هاللقاء. هلا يونس طبعا كمان، رندا أبو سليمان يلي اليوم بتشرفنا ببركة بحلة أخرى، لأن رندا أكيد محامية الأيوبي، ولكن أيضا اليوم عم تحكي كونها خبيرة قانونية مع البنك الدولي على موضوع المرفأ. برحب
So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this first day of the Beirut Port Discussion Series, organized by the Beirut Urban Lab at the Maroun Sanaan Faculty of Engineering and Architecture at AUB in partnership with IFI and the Arab Center for Architecture. We meet today in genocidal times in Palestine and in dire times in Lebanon, where discussions like these may appear futile and absurd. Yet, history teaches us that the worst deals for the future of our cities and ecologies take place in war times. We are here because we don't want this to happen, at least without a discussion that tries to make it better for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren. I want to thank sincerely the colleagues at the World Bank for having agreed to take part in this critical discussion, and IFI and ACA for co-organizing this event with us. I'm going to introduce everyone briefly, including myself. I'm not sure if everyone knows who's speaking, before I say a few words on behalf of my colleagues at the BUL, at the Beirut Urban Lab. So let me check the bios. So you heard Joe Bahoud speak earlier, who's the director of the Issam Faris Institute for Public Policy and International Affairs. I'm not going to read everyone's bio. They're available on the link of this event, which you can look up. I'd like to introduce, in order of speaking, I'm actually Mona Harib. I'm a professor of urban studies and politics at AUB. We will hear from, of course, Jean-Christophe Carré, the World Bank Country Director for the Middle East Department, who manages the institution's engagement programs in Lebanon, Iraq, Jordan, Iran, and Syria. We will also hear from Anne-Cécile Souhed, who was not introduced earlier, who's the transport specialist at the World Bank, covering West and Central Africa. We will also hear from Randa Abu Slayman, the managing partner of Abu Slayman and Partners law firm, and part of the team formed by the World Bank advising on the reform of the port sector in Lebanon, and who currently works on the new framework for the port sector law. The panel will include discussions by Hala Younes, architect and geographer from the School of Architecture of Paris-La Seine and from the Institute of Geography of Paris 4 Sorbonne. She's a professional practitioner well known to many of you in this room. We will also hear from Jad Tabet, the past president of the Lebanese Federation of Engineers and Architects and the Organization of Arab Architects, and former member of UNESCO World Heritage Committee and honorary president of ICOMOS Lebanon, among many others activities. You will also hear from Ali Aboud, an economist interested in labor economics, inequality, and demography, who's an assistant professor at the Department of Economics at the AUB. Also a fellow at IFI in multiple capacities. Allow me to say a few words in preparation of our discussion and invite you to think together about a few items that will help us assess today's presentation and Thursday's presentation. 2.5 years ago, Mona Fawaz and I participated on behalf of the Beirut Urban Lab in the launch of the World Bank study for national port strategy, including the legal framework for port management, and including also a study for the port recovery following the disastrous port blast of August 2020 at the Sera. Since then, and we were just talking how little changes, but maybe things just get blocked and it's even worse than not changing. We have been at BUL feeling very responsible to maintain a public conversation about the recovery of the port and to make sure this conversation is data-driven, informed, and open to all. So the sessions that we are holding this week fall in that direction. And I introduced them so we can think together about the basis upon which we can approach our engagement and evaluation of the pathways for recovery that are offered by the two urban proposals that will be discussed today and on Thursday. At the Serai, we put forth three main issues: process, values, and port-city relations. These values were also the basis of our advocacy as members of the consultative group of the 3RF for Lebanon, the Recovery, Reconstruction, and Reform Framework, which did not lead us very far, unfortunately, but hopefully this may differ. I would like to encourage the audience to think of these three issues and what are the stakes that these urban proposals represent, not only for the port of Beirut, but also for the city of Beirut and its agglomeration, and for Lebanon as a whole. Allow me to say a few words about each of these issues. First, process. We believe that only an open, transparent, and participatory process can allow Lebanon to recover its port infrastructure and more generally, its economic and political viability. As a research lab, the BUL is committed to open discussion, and this is the core of our mission. We support and produce data-driven and informed deliberations about the developmental options that are put forward for Beirut's urban recovery, particularly since the port blast, but also in relation to financial and political meltdown that is still ongoing, and more generally to help navigate towards just, livable, and viable urbanizations. We are committed as a research lab, as engaged citizens, and as national experts to actively participate in sharing knowledge, fostering an informed public debate, and securing accountability in the decisions taken through centering citizens' involvement. 2 years ago, we had proposed that at least 2 groups be engaged regularly in the participatory process. Lebanese professionals who know about ports, and there are many of them are in the room today, as well as international bodies such as the Association Internationale Villes et Ports. We argued that these actors could act as the custodians of the common good in a country where, sadly, the institutions of the state are no longer effective in doing so. We continue to believe that this deliberative process is critical. We are happy to see it happening today, but it is quite belated and only happening after the projects are submitted. The second set of issues we'd like you to think of while listening to the presentations today and Thursday concerns values. The port reconstruction should be designed, we believe, to foster a redistributive economic model that departs from the pre-crisis rent economy. In addition, the port reconstruction should respect the demands of the city dwellers, particularly the families of the port victims, to create an open, accessible, and public memorial. As we look to learn more about the proposal for the port, some critical questions will be: what economic model guides this port recovery strategies? Does the model uphold the myth of recovering the pre-crisis economy, as many are doing, or is the proposed strategy capable of helping the port, as well as the city and the country it serves, move towards a more productive and redistributive economic model, one that secures decent employment generation and dignified lives to those living in the country, one that takes a clear distance from the rent-seeking economic model adopted over the last 3 decades, where a few men benefit enormously without substantive spillover to the city. 2 years ago, we warned that cities no longer measure success by the growing number of containers. Is the proposed port development putting us closer to a model that serves as an engine for the vitality of all dwellers of Lebanon, or are we sticking to favoring the business interest of a few? The third and last set of issues I'd like to raise concerns port-city relations. As urbanists, we center the port-city relations and the model proposed for this relation and put it at the core of how we look at the project. As Beirutis, we recognize Beirut as a port city and long to recover a relationship that was severed long time ago. Consequently, we evaluate the project by asking these sets of questions. What port-city relation and development is proposed by the models? Are they providing a coherent vision that recovers the role of Beirut as a port city? We all know that historically, Beirut grew around its port, as did its road infrastructures. Today, the port and the city continue to share the same risks: climate change, earthquakes, bad governance. Yet, the port has positioned the city as its backyard for the past 30 years, if not more. Do the proposed plans encourage a departure from this distorted relation and ruptured reality, or are they perpetuating this obsolete vision? There are at least 4 ways through which the port-city relation can be rethought of. First, what are the functions proposed for the port? Does the proposal allow in the short or long term the introduction of recreational and tourist functions that can bring an important economic spillover to the city and its agglomeration and to the country as a whole, in line with what other cities have done, where multiple functions are managed and integrated. I'm thinking of Genoa, Marseille, Barcelona, among others. 2, at what scale does the study approach the port? Does the study look at the port and develop a master plan at the scale of the port area, leaving the city out? 3, does the design spatial framework de-enclave the port and restitch it to the city, knowing that with today's technologies, this is technically possible? Let us recall the several ruptures that need to be addressed in any proposal. First, the relation to the historic core. Solidaire holds parts of the first basin, and its urban model form of development is not in line with the approach we are advocating. The company has benefited from enormous public subsidies and returned very little to the country. We demand that proposals include the first basin and the core, and that we dare to reclaim back parts of the historic core for the public good. Second, the connections to Gemmayzeh, Mari Mkhail, Charles Hello Station, and more are all essential, and existing ruptures need to be addressed and resolved and recovered. Third, the de-enclaving of Karantina is critical. Fourth, the continuity of the city's coast and beyond must be recovered as well. The final set of issues I will share before concluding. Does the framework institutionalize a role for city authorities to be involved in the port? This is the pathway that was followed by numerous other cities around the Mediterranean, which we need to learn from. But surely the institutional and legal framework needs to depart from the centralized and unaccountable model adopted in Beirut downtown and Lebanon's last 30 years. Evidently, we have numerous financial, institutional, legal, and technical challenges, but the technical is always led and guided by a value system. We need to make sure that the values of inclusion, redistribution, ecological viability, social cohesion, and human dignity are at the center of any economic project we endorse and we move forward with. These are the values that need to guide the regulatory and institutional frameworks proposed, the tools that are adopted, the visions that are conceived, and the modalities of implementation and future management. I hope we are able to think through this framework together today and on Thursday. Thank you for listening. This is an introduction that's long because it introduces the first today and Thursday. So thank you for your patience.
Good morning again, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much for the AUB and Urban Lab for inviting us to present I would say the consolidated technical assistance that the World Bank has provided. I don't think that you will see anything new. I prefer to tell you upfront in the plan because as our director has just said, this is a plan that has been consulted upon for almost 2 years. So we have consolidated the technical assistance recommendation. We will talk today more about the governance and the law and the proposed recommendations for the reconstruction and development plan, and we look forward to the discussion after that. Just as a recap on the context, as it was said, following the tragic explosion at the port, we have been engaged with our partners from the UN and EU in very quickly preparing a rapid damage and need assessment and a reform, recovery, and reconstruction framework. We, the World Bank also, we chaired a unified port sector platform of international development and diplomatic partners. This was more than 25 institutions where we met regularly and tried to mobilize and consolidate the recommendation from the diplomatic community in really the building blocks to rebuild better the port of Beirut. And as a recap, those are 4 building blocks. The very first one was regarding a new governance structure for the port. We published a best practice note recommending the Port of Beirut to comply to a landlord port model, also with improved customs and digitalization for processes. This was the second really recommendation in terms of a building block to rebuild better the port of Beirut. The second and third were related to quality infrastructure and cost-effective reconstruction and operation of the port, meaning open, transparent bidding process, be it for the reconstruction or operation of the port. Following that, as Monsieur Carré just reminded, we were asked by the government of Lebanon to help in a more detailed technical assistance. We have mobilized trust fund, and we articulated the technical assistance on 3 pillars. The first one was to deep dive in the port sector governance and to organize a team of technical experts, and Maître Bousleiman will present the recommendations that we have provided in very close collaboration with a team that was mobilized from the Ministry of Transport to prepare a new sector law. The second pillar was related to a national port vision for the ports of the country to define the role of each port and complementarity of the ports. This was approved already more than a year ago, and this also was widely consulted upon, so we won't go into details of the vision because I think you all saw it already. And finally, the Port of Beirut Development Plan, which aims to recommend on a vision for 2040, with also medium-term recommendations. So we have consolidated all those recommendations in a report that was published and is available on our website, and that we have the pleasure to present today. We'll start with Maître Bousleiman on the recommendation on the port sector law, and I will come back for the rest.
Hello and good morning. It's good to be here in a different capacity, not to solve problems. For AUB council problems. Okay. So I'll just, with a short presentation, I'll handle just the technical aspect of the law. We'll start with the guiding principles. Just as you may know, the old sector law was, the port law was dated back to 1966, so there was an urgent need to have a new law to accompany the development of the port. So what were the guiding principles of this law? We have a new governance structure based on transparency and efficiency. We have, which addresses a lot of your concern, participation of the local port stakeholders. We have digital infrastructure for transparency and port performance. And we have an establishment of a national port policy. And we have a national vision for the port master planning processes. So these were the guiding principles. We have a holistic view we have a holistic view of the transport and logistics system for the country, and these are the guiding principles which we worked upon. Now, this is the organization structure that is provided in the law, so I'll take each one, but for you to know, we have, of course, the whole structure is chaired by the Ministry of Public Works and Transport. We have a National Port Council, and we have the Port Authority. The port authorities are the different port companies, in fact, that will handle each port. And we have the Port Community Council. And all this is under the supervision of the port regulator, which is a very important feature of this law. So if we take one by one, so at the top of this organization, we have, of course, the ministry. So in addition to the various functions that the ministry has, we have a new role for the ministry. So to develop the long-term strategic vision for the port sector, to coordinate the development of the Lebanese ports, to stimulate external trade, and through enhanced cost effectiveness of port services. And of course, the ministry has to oversee the functioning and performance of all administrative and operational entities established under the present law. So it's at the top of the pyramid. The National Port Council composition, so it's set in the law, so it cannot be changed. I'm not going to go over who this council includes, but for you to know, it's a combination of private and public sector, and you have a very wide representation of this Port Council composition. What is the function and the powers of this National Port Council? So it elaborates the national port policy on a 10-year horizon, And this is a new feature because in Lebanon we're always short-term, so here we have a long-term plan. Also, it has to champion the digital infrastructure vision as a #1 priority. It also is in charge of bringing funding from the public and the private sector just to make sure that the whole system works properly. Now we have a regulatory authority in this law. So it consists of 6 members, including a chairperson. So what is important, so we try to remove this regulatory authority from the political influence, with all due respect to everyone. So the members cannot be relieved and from their duties or dismissed except in exceptional cases like criminal conduct or if they're incapacitated. So they're not at the they're not a function of the political will. Once they're elected and appointed, that's it. So not elected, appointed actually. So the minister also has to appoint the chief executive officer of this port regulator. And the Council of Ministers will have to adopt the administrative and financial organization of this port regulator. Now, what is very important to say, it has a legal personality, so that's very important. It has financial and administrative autonomy. Its role is to ensure fair access to everyone and anti-competitive behavior, to address some of this, your concern. Promote equity and access to port and to facilities and services provided in the port, and to monitor the activity of the various players or the various entities. What is also important, and I'm not going to go, but just it's also if there are complaints, this regulators, meaning between the port company and the users, so this authority has the power to settle complaints, and if the complaints can be appealed before the State Council. So it has also some regulatory power that are very important. Now the port company, so what is novel in this law is we have created port companies. These companies are subject to the Code of Commerce. So there are private companies operating as a private company with the shareholder, with the state being a shareholder. So we have a combination of public and private. This is important because there is no dissipation of assets, meaning the assets of the port remain in the public hand, but the operation is a private operation. So that is the novelty of the law. So we have a port company to which the assets will be contributed, and the state will take shares in return. So the role of this company is, of course, the day-to-day management, to develop and construct the port, to enter into contract with transparency, bidding processes. In few words, is to ensure the operation of the port. And this is the local participation that you are very keen on. So we have the Port Community Council. So in each port, a community council grouping all local commercial and port stakeholders shall be organized. It includes different players, maritime agents, freight forwarders, so on and so forth. So the role is to bring it's a forum for discussion and coordination between the stakeholder. And this council will be consulted by the port company in preparing the local policy and for explaining the general way of doing business. So there is an active participation. Okay, now, oh no, sorry. Now, to conclude, just a few words. So it's a forward-looking law. We have to say with the recommendation of the World Bank and the ministry, they were really keen on having a new law. It ensures transparency, efficiency, and participation of local stakeholders. And thank you very much.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that my comments concerning the participation were not about the World Bank at all. We appreciate and support the approach, which is open and participatory. So I just wanted to clarify this because it's coming back to us.
Yeah.
We have a discussion coming up with, on Thursday with the project that was presented to the public without consultation. So I don't know if we have people in the room who can respond to that later, but also for representatives from the ministry who can maybe tell us what's the status of the World Bank project in relation to the second project. But I'm interrupting the presentation. Apologies. Please go.
No, thank you, Mana. I think it's a perfect transition, actually, because I was going to recap a little bit on the vision for the ports. And the Urban Lab organized the consultation on the vision. I think it was back in 2022. So I think it's an excellent example on how we have worked together and how this plan is really the result of iteration of consultation. So this is a recap on, I won't spend time on it to take more time on the plan itself. This is a recap on the vision, so how to organize the port system of the country for complementarity of roles and to take the best opportunity of their location, of interland opportunities, etc. So, for instance, Tripoli, the interland with Syria, Saida with the maritime tourism, fisheries, etc., and Beirut, which we'll talk about more, with more consistent role as a regional gateway integrated in the city. So I will go straight into the proposed recommendations for the Port of Beirut Reconstruction and Development Plan. And just to recap, because as you said, Mona, I think the process was very important in the development of the recommendations of the plan, of the bank for the plan. So we had agreed on guiding principles with all the stakeholders that were consulted upon from day one and based on, so of course, rigorous technical analysis, because this is why we are here for, and this is why we were called to bring global knowledge and international expertise. So we have recruited a team of technical experts, international and local, including consultancy firm to work on the plan itself. And most importantly, wide consultation and market sounding. And the plan has changed over time depending on what we have heard and how the market sounding, be it for big operators on the commercial part of the port, and we'll talk about that later, but also on the port city integration part of the port, where the civil society, local private sector had a lot to say. And those feedbacks are integrated in the proposed layout for the port. So I will read the guiding principles because I think it's very important. So the objective is to reconcile the need to cost-effectively handle domestic and international trade. This is usually the role of a port, but while stimulating also the job creation and value-adding innovation at Horizon 2040. And this is the part which is the port city integration, because port city integration is not only an urban integration of the port in the city, it's also the opportunities that are created for the citizen in the port and the local economy. So we've heard and we've integrated in the recommendations the 6 guiding principles. The first one was, of course, to rebuild critical infrastructure in a cost-effective manner, serve future traffics in all key cargo categories, and respond to opportunities without sacrificing essential function and future requirements, restore trust for partnerships with terminal operators, customers, and international donors, develop value-added activities through port city integration for additional income for the port while serving as an economic accelerator, and offer a space of healing for the victims of the blast, their families, and all those affected. So this is the plan. As I was saying in the beginning, it won't come as a surprise because I think you've all seen the different iteration. I will go through the key clusters in a minute, but in a nutshell, the plan is organized in 2 zones. One, which is the trades commercial zone, which is a zone to import-export cargo and to handle cargo, and this is from C1 to C3, so with a container terminal, grain terminal, general cargo, and ro-ro, which stops, I don't know if you can see, which stops more or less here. and the rest of the port, and which can accommodate for the traffic that is forecasted up to 2040. The rest of the port and it's still the port, it's still the land of the port, but it's a part which is open to the citizen of Beirut. First, for a sanctuarized area, which is the area of the blast. The existing free zone, which is revitalized and maybe transformed into a special economic zone, also to add other activities, a cruise terminal and recreational tourist areas, training areas in the waterfront area. So I will go through, and please, I invite you to read the report that we have published, which has all the technical details in terms of forecasted traffic, more detailed on the damage assessment, etc., and more operational efficiency details. On the container terminal, of course, the location is maintained. It's already under a management contract of 10 years with also planned investment of 33 million to increase the capacity up to 1.5 million TEU per year. So we have provided essentially some recommendations to upgrade the operational efficiency. This is by access in and out and organizing the trucks around the port, the parking area, repairing the cranes, and also introducing a container freight station, but also insisting on the digitalization process and on the work of customs. Because, I mean, this costs zero, but with a very good trade facilitation process, you can save a lot of space in terms of storage area and the port. So this is concerning the container terminal. The second cluster is the grain handling and storage terminal. We believe and we recommended that this is of strategic importance for food security in the country. You will see that in the forecast, this is the only forecast that only depends on the population and not on the GDP, neither on the GDP per capita. So this is quite a clear forecast in terms of needs to feed the population. And so the recommendation of the bank is to install a new grain terminal as soon as possible on Mall 3. And we recommended that rebuilding this terminal on Mall 2 would not be operationally optimal and less attractive to private investors that were consulted during the market sounding. We have also recommended some technical details in terms of the size of the silos to accommodate for handling, plus emergency reserve of the silos. So this is all details are in the report. The third cluster of the commercial port is regarding the vehicles, so the Ro-Ro and general cargo terminal. Based on the consultation of international operators, we recommend that those two are merged together in one terminal. And the sizing of the area was based also on the forecast, knowing that the main commodity at the port today is the iron and steel. So the sizing was based on the forecast. Now, finally, I know, and this is what interests you most, is the recommendations on the port city integration area that we have called the value-added area. So this area comprises of, as I said before, a sanctuarized area to remember the victims of the blast, which will be open to the city. So all this area actually is open to the city. You can see it on the plan with pedestrian access from the city into the port. That I would like to insist on, that remains a public owned land managed by the port, but with the law, the landlord port model allows the port also to manage areas that are beyond the usual commercial activities of cargo handling of the port, and this is also a revenue for the port. So this area will comprise a cruise terminal that will also catalyze recreation activities, blue economy activities, the free zone, and a business and innovation hub. We've heard from the civil society, from the local private sector, that there is a need for land to be accessible, close to logistic opportunity like a port brings for logistic and light processing, light manufacturing, high value added ICT services, e-commerce, technical and vocational training, and tourism related activities. I would like also to insist on the fact, because I know that this was a concern with a lot of stakeholders that we have consulted, this will not, with the World Bank, do not encourage any real estate on the port land, because we believe that there is enough offer in the city. So finally, and you can find that in the report with more details, we have estimated the cost for each cluster and a recommended phasing, and we also find in terms of area needed. But I would just like to end by reminding two critical assumptions for this reconstruction and development plan. The first one is the fact that it needs the law to be enacted, because this is how it will allow the port authority to become a landlord port, which can, manage all those different activities that we are recommending for the port, and an efficient custom and border management processes, because this is also what allows the land for the use to be, smaller, and the storing area to be smaller, and to allow for the land to accommodate to all the activities that are proposed. So I will leave you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cécile. I would like to invite Hala and Ali and Jad to come back, and we'll give them the floor for comments before we open it for discussion. Hala Yunus, would you like to start?
So, thank you, and Cécile, for coming from so far to present this again. Thank you, Jean-Christophe, for accepting to have also this session. Thank you for the AUB, the Urban Lab, and the Issam Faris Institute for hosting us. And I would like also to thank my colleagues from the OEA and from the Arab Center for Architecture, who worked hard also for this event to happen. This was a long-awaited event that has to be belated because of the dramatic events in Gaza, and its urgency was triggered by the fact that we have now another project for the port, and this was also, of course, raised by the will of Jad, who worked hard for this event. So thank you for all of you for this this occasion to reopen this long-awaited debate about what is happening and what has to happen on the port. So you presented the legal framework. I have 2 words on it. You presented the national port strategy, but you didn't go long on it, and I don't know if it's still something that is discussed, and the vision for the port of Beirut. Regarding the new law, it is evident that the modern port sector will require an independent national port regulator, particularly if we are to transition to a landlord model and eventually privatize certain spaces and terminal. However, we must hope that the law is passed promptly and that the port regulator is really independent. And I saw that the director of the port regulator is designated by the Ministry of Public Works, and I don't know in this event how much independent this port regulator it has, and I have to insist on this. I'm not a specialist of these issues, but for it to work, it has to be independent. So the national port strategy raises also many concerns. Spreading significant infrastructures and investment along a coast of less than 120 kilometers raises several questions at different levels: political, economic, environmental, and I will go very quickly over them. Politically, the construction of 4 ports on such a small coastline raises concern about whether it signifies a strategic port development plan or a step toward federalizing the country, this without undue paranoia, and forgive me for that. Economically, we need to carefully consider the costs involved. Consolidating one main port may be more cost-effective than maintaining multiple small ports. It may be feasible to secure funding for establishing one major port, perhaps two, Beirut and Tripoli, but certainly not Zahrani or Saida, not to talk about the others. Regarding the environment, constructing and expanding new ports can lead to significant adverse effect, disturbing marine life, pollution, and change in coastal dynamics. Developing the port of Beirut and Tripoli is more sustainable and preferable to spreading infrastructure across the entire coastline. But the main concern is the loss of competitiveness of Beirut, because 120 kilometers is the distance between Beirut and Haifa. So why have we decided to dispatch the load of Beirut on 4 ports, and how will this impact the competition with Haifa? It will certainly relegate Beirut to a secondary port status. Have we really decided to lose this battle? And it's a question. In 2017, Beirut and Haifa handled the same traffic volume, and it's not the case anymore, and we have a lot to do to regain our position. So when it comes to the plan you are proposing for Beirut, we need to ask a crucial question. How was the allocation of space and handling capacity of the port of Beirut determined? If it is based on a portion of the national market, then this plan cannot be convincing. If not, your traffic assumptions based on transient geopolitical situation and crisis should still be scrutinized. Beirut has been amputated from its hinterland for the last 12 years, if not since the 80s. The state of belligerency between Syria and Iraq, the wars, and the sanctions are all states of exception. Your main hypothesis, the Indian-Arab-Mediterranean corridor, based on the complete privatization of Haifa port by Indian and Israeli companies and the integration of Israel into the Middle East, are now challenged. On the contrary, economic forecast may be overestimated. Assumption about steel and vehicle consumption based on GDP growth may not align with future trends and consumption pattern. If we have the chance to develop our economy, are we really going to have one vehicle for 2 citizens, or shall we decide finally to have a public transport system? Are we going to continue building until nothing remains from the land, or shall we make use of our huge stock of vacant buildings? The proposed master plan should reflect on Beirut's role at the global and national scale, but it also offers the opportunity to address the historical dysfunctional relation between the port and the city. Beirut should undoubtedly remain the leading port of the Middle East, fostering wealth and growth for Lebanon, but not at any cost. The hectic development of the port hindered many urban development opportunities that should be seized today. The reconstruction of the port holds strategic dimensions that extend beyond the design, and it has been said, but your project still needs to be integrated in a global vision for Beirut. These questions have been developed in the recommendation prepared by the OEA last year and communicated to your team. They have been also summarized by Mona Harib, and so I will not go over them again. So while we appreciate the port city integration area, opening the second basin to the public and the second mall, and the fact of keeping open the project of the memorial, and I must say that all of us are parents of the victims, all of the Lebanese are parents of the victim, and it's a memorial for all of us. Of keeping also the project of the passenger terminal, the integration should extend beyond the innovation hub to Shar Hilo station and find space in the land reserve for public transport amenities and infrastructure that are missing dramatically to Beirut. So in this landlord model, some of this land should and have to be serving the city and not only the port. Also, the waterfront should be connected to the main basin and the Martyr Square. And we saw in your drawing the green promenade around the first basin. It is drawn in your report. It is drawn in the drawing behind me. And it seems that it has been forgotten in the text. So I would like to know what happened. However, we seek clarity on how the port connects to the hinterland and fits into the broader communication framework. Nothing has been said on that. What about the entrance of Beirut, of Karantina? What about the truck traffic? Beyond Beirut River, the eastward expansion mentioned shyly in your page 91 of your document for a free zone is more than interesting. It might create a unique opportunity to rehabilitate the landfills of Burj Hamoud and Jneide that are environmental tragedies. In any case, these spaces should be kept as strategic reserves for the expansion, the future expansion of the port of Beirut, in a future that is now unpredictable, but where all possibilities should remain open, and where the port of Beirut will not be shrinking anymore and might need to grow dramatically to be able to regain its regional position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will hear from Jad Tabat and Ali Aboud, and of course you'll have time to answer, but we also have many who would want to engage. So, yes. Jad Tabat, تفضل.
Okay, hello. Well, after Mona and Hala, I don't know if I have a lot of things to say, so I would like to apologize if I repeat from the public, if I have to repeat some things. Well, I would like to raise some critical issues which seem to me essential to envision a possible future for the port of Beirut. While reviewing the geoeconomics of corridor routes and the rise of new corridors in the region, you say in your report that the port of Beirut could place itself on two routes, the Arab-Mediterranean corridor and the Iran-Iraq-Syria corridor. The Arab-Mediterranean corridor that may be extended to India is to link Jabal Ali port in Dubai to the Mediterranean via Saudi Arabia and Jordan. This is for the public who didn't maybe read the report. But we know, as you say in this corridor, that, as you say in this report, in your report, that this corridor is being developed not with Beirut port as a terminal on the Mediterranean, but rather with Haifa port. The other issue is that of the Iraq-Iran Syria corridor, where also that develops from Al-Faw port in Iraq till Turkey through Syria. Also, this second corridor seems not to have Beirut as a regional terminal. So, how can we envision a future role of the port of Beirut in such a regional configuration? Could you elaborate more about this, since you say that Beirut has a role in these two corridors, or could have a role in these two corridors? The second issue is that you say in your report that after the civil war, Lebanon was able to play a niche regional role, but this role started reducing since 2012, 2013, and collapsed completely after the 2019 crisis. You also consider that the dreams of seeing Lebanese ports regain their importance with the future reconstruction of Syria and Iraq are not realistic, and that transit market will not play an important role in Lebanese trade. This is taken from your report. I mean, you didn't speak about dreams, but this is what you imply. You present figures about the limited volume of trade between Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq over the past 25 years, as well as the limited volume of transit market that didn't account for more than 0.5% of the country's containerized volumes during the last decade. In these conditions, what are the possibilities for Beirut port to shift from a survival trade to a globally integrated economy, given the loss of competitiveness of Lebanon in its traditional economic role? This is my second question. You consider that the main asset of Beirut port lies in its container terminal in the Fifth Basin, which is the only existing location able to accommodate large ships and transshipment operation, and which is essential for Beirut port. You hence propose to upgrade this terminal and to locate all port commercial operations, grain terminal, ro-ro vehicles, general cargo, in the eastern part near the container terminal to facilitate port operation. The scheme you are proposing, based on the traffic forecast, could free up space in the old Basin 1, as you said, and Basin 2, and offers the possibility of preserving the site of the blast as a sanctuarized area, a site of memory accessible to the public. Such approach seems coherent with the transformation that happened in the region and the perspective traffic, both domestic and international, that you forecast in your report, even though it may seem shocking for those of us who still believe that Lebanon can regain the role it played during the 50s and the 60s. But instead of trying to revive an outdated model, you're proposing to shift towards what you call the fourth generation ports that are driven by intermodal transport and information technology, value added and logistics, and blue and green economy. The vision, a model, you say, that no longer isolates ports from their urban environment, but rather considers them as an integral part of the ecosystem to which they belong. Such a vision seems obviously very promising, since it breaks away from the usual approach that was adopted since the end of the Civil War, which constituted the basis of the strategy for the reconstruction of Lebanon since the 90s, an approach that ended up with the collapse and the failure that we suffer since the 5 years. The vision you promote opens for us new inspiring perspectives, in line with contemporary projects that were implemented in several other Mediterranean ports, like Marseille, Barcelona, Genoa, etc. However, such an approach raises a series of questions which seem to me central in any recovery and development strategy. One, you build your scenario within a time frame limited to the year 2040, i.e. 25 years from now. What would happen later on? Did you consider in your space allocation potential future expansion and land reserves that would offer flexibility in space occupation? Number two, Hala questioned some of the traffic forecasts included in the annex of the document. I would like to insist on a single issue, which seems to me hugely disproportionate. You build your ro-ro space allocation. Ro-ro, you know, it's the vehicle for people who don't know what's ro-ro. You built your ro-ro space allocation on a vehicle traffic forecast of 120,000 vehicles per year entering the port of Beirut. If we compare these figures with the highest ro-ro traffic in the whole history of Beirut port, which is 41,000 vehicles in 2016, we never reached more than 41,000 vehicles. We cannot understand how you could reach 120,000 vehicles in 2014, knowing that infrastructures in the country are totally saturated, that opportunities for developing these infrastructures are limited and very expensive, and knowing also that all traffic studies, including studies done by the World Bank, concluded that the only reasonable solution would be to develop public transportation, both to solve traffic problems and to offer environmental friendly solutions. Could you explain why did you propose such figures which seem to be in contradiction with a sustainable green development? Question number 3. You propose to take advantage of the area that may not be needed for the post-traditional commercial services, which means the containers, ro-ro, and general cargo, to develop activities in the sector of blue economy linked to the city. You exclude investments in real estate and property development in these areas, yes, but did you identify which opportunities exist for the creation of activities linked to blue economy given the conditions of the Lebanese market? And what would be the future of, as Hala says, of the military base in Basin 1? Finally, I can only repeat what was said by Mona and Hala regarding the relationship between the port and the city, regretting that your proposal didn't tackle the treatment of the fringes between the port and the neighborhood urban frame. More particularly, the treatment of the highway and the Sharm Hilo station, which would provide opportunities for creating links with Jumeirah neighborhood, but also the treatment of the transition zone between the port and Karantina, which could be essential to solve environmental issues and improve the living conditions of the inhabitants in the area. In conclusion, I would like to stress on the fact that the port has been the birthplace of modern Beirut. When a small coastal Medina in the first decades of the 19th century became the main hub between Europe and the Middle Eastern hinterland. I believe that the project you presented, and that was rendered public on your website last month, raises very important issues regarding the future of this port, since it would constitute the starting point for a very rich public discussion on how we can build back better, in which city we want to live, and how we can envision a new Lebanon over the ruins of an obsolete political and economic system. But we all agree that the prerequisite for any recovery and development project lies in a reform that would put an end to the legal vacuum persisting since the 90s, with a port authority appointed on a temporary basis and a patchwork of ad hoc structures related to various political parties, which ends up with inefficient management, poor governance, and a lack of transparency and accountability. Such a reform constitutes a necessary condition in order not to risk another catastrophe to happen, similar or even worse than the 4th of August blast. Thank you.
Thank you, Jad. Ali Abboud.
Hi. This is working. Hello. Thank you for IFI and Beirut Urban Lab for inviting me to participate on this panel, and thank you for the World Bank for the presentation. I mean, I guess I don't have many more things to say after all what was said. So I'm not an urban planner, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm an economist. So I have a few questions as an economist. I have a few questions as a citizen. So I'll start by my first question as a citizen concerning like the legal framework. Like I didn't see any role for the local city councils, like the municipal councils, especially like that. Sorry. So the Beirut municipality, the Tripoli municipality, and the Saida municipality, like these are major cities with large city councils, and that could resolve some of the issue of independence, because like the concern whenever you have a public, at least the experience we have in Lebanon is whenever you have a public entity, they eventually need to be appointed by someone, and we can put elements in the law that try to provide some kind of like independence, but we know how it works in Lebanon. Even if they cannot remove you from your position. You're always concerned about your next position or where you'll go next. So like maybe multiplying or like involving other actors, especially local actors that are locally like basically they're liable to the constituents, like city council. That could help a little bit with that role. And the other importance of involving city councils is that ports, they generate opportunities, but they also create externalities, negative externalities. And it's mostly the cities that will have to sustain these externalities. So they should be involved in decision making, but also they should be playing a role in terms of like, you know, defending the interest of their city. So that's like what I have for the legal framework. Otherwise, like, I mean, I think the law, the proposed law is a improvement. Concerning the general vision, so I liked in the report. So I read the report, 94 pages, and I like the general vision. Like in Lebanon, we tend, whenever we talk about economics, people like to talk a lot about geopolitics. I tend not to like that, but I think in the case of Beirut port, it's the history of Beirut port is a geopolitical issue. As I said, like the relationship between the city and the port is historic. I think like a reading of history shows that Beirut developed from a town into a city because of the port. Now, the direction of trade and the linkage of trade, international trade, were very important in the development of the port and the ups and downs that the port had, from east-west trajectory to later west-east trajectory, the closure of the Suez Canal in the 60s, onward. Now, when we're trying to look at the and I agree with the report in terms of the opportunity for the port is really the middle, the middle trajectory or the middle way, and both the Belt and Road Initiative and the Arab, like the through Jabal Ali to, but both of them require connectivity. Okay, so like, so when we're talking about the 4 ports, mostly Beirut port and the other major ports on the other minor ports on the coast, we don't have connectivity. Like the plan doesn't talk about any connection between the different ports, and doesn't talk about connection between the ports, the interior of Lebanon, and then to Syria. And now, the recent geopolitical events in the region have shown that the Red Sea isn't that safe for transportation. There's always going to be risks. The port of Haifa is going to have risks. So that's like one thing we're learning. And so there are opportunities for the port of Beirut, okay? So in a sense, that's like one thing we realized in the, So now this is where our role comes. Like we need to present ourselves as more competitive option. And in order to have that more competitive option, we need the connectivity to the interior. Now, how is that going to happen with the sanctions on Syria? Like that's like an issue of consideration. Now, the reason I'm bringing this like geopolitical vision, because that will help us think a little bit about what's the role. Like for me, it's like the question is more, what's the role of the Beirut port and the other ports in Lebanon? Are we nodes in the global international trade, or are we just like ports to serve local and maybe some small regional like needs? And so like we need to answer these questions and like in the general vision, because that will determine a lot about like how much we need to invest in these ports and on a big scale, and even like what's like basically the forms of investment and the sources of investment. Now, the other thing about, so when I was looking through the report, so the option for financing weren't very clear for me. So how are we thinking? Is that part of like later discussion about like basically ownership management, so on? This is where it will come. So because I see like there was a discussion of the cost, but financing cost is also a big issue for a country that's like basically bankrupt. So that's like an important issue that need to be addressed. The other thing where like there were mentioned before is like basically the forecasts, especially so the cars, they were mentioned a lot, but for me the iron and like that's. I mean, we don't have it here, the figures, but like the numbers were more than double. And we all know like iron is used for construction. So are we expecting an urban boom in Lebanon, or these forecasts have a vision that some of this iron will be towards Syria, toward Iraq. Like, what are we really thinking? Like basically, when we're thinking, like, I know there were regression analysis and so on, but like I think it's a little bit more involved than just like basing it on GDP and GDP per capita and just the population. So I think that would require a little bit. Are we thinking about like closed economy, open economy models? Like, so what are we? I mean, if there are some clarifications about that, that would be helpful. Now, the other thing, actually the last thing I'm going to talk about is, so I already mentioned the connectivity. So we were thinking about connection between ports. Now, I don't know if we'll have a railway system in Lebanon anytime soon, but we obviously have an issue with our highways. So we had highways built in the early 90s, but whenever we enter cities, you all see like the bottlenecks. So like, and that's like a major issue, but especially that our port happened to be on the northern entrance of Beirut. That's already very crowded, and so that does impact transportation and movement of goods that are supposed to exit from that port. So like in general, I think that's a little bit lacking in the plan, like reimagining the connection between the different cities and the interior of Lebanon, but also the role of the ports in basically resolving some of the transportation issue in Lebanon. Like, I mean, I don't know how feasible it is, but like a ferry system, since we have like all these different ports on the coast, I don't know how, like, I mean, this will definitely need a cost-benefit analysis, but I think part of the elements of the ports that we can add to this picture would be like a ferry station, maybe on the Beirut port. And the final thing is, so I'm not an urban planner or an architect, and I like the idea of city-port integration. Just like by looking at the picture, like I just like have a feeling that it's kind of, it looks more like a gated community where we're inviting the city in, less than the port is really being integrated in the city. And I think like we do have a waterfront, and I think that waterfront should be integrated into that vision of the port. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I want to suggest to give back the floor to Maître Abou Sulaiman and Cécile. I don't know if Monsieur Carré wants to add anything, but if it's possible to select the ones that are the most priority points for you to answer, because we have a full room. I see a lot of very familiar faces of people who want to speak. I also want to invite Mr. Qasim Rahal to speak if he wants to, if he'd like to. So please, go ahead.
Okay, I'll answer briefly on the law. Look, I think it's very easy to criticize, and we have a lot to criticize, but we also have to recognize when you have something good, okay? So the law is a forward-looking law. It's done according to international best practice. I have to say I've worked on many laws in Lebanon, sector laws, and it is a law where the minister and the ministry and his team have accepted to relinquish the most powers, which I haven't seen in other laws, just to give credit to where it should. So that's as a general comment. Specific comment on the port regulator and on participation on the port regulator, you have the independence in the law. So it's an independent body, it has financial autonomy, it has administrative autonomy, it has a system where you have to be people qualified to be selected, and the minister himself has to choose among 3 candidates proposed by the port regulator based on their CVs, and all of this is public. So with the recommendation of the World Bank, we have applied international best practice everywhere. So we have to recognize it. Sometimes things are good, and this is a good law. So that's for the first thing. The second thing, the participation. We had a very small presentation, but if you read the law, the National Port Council has all the people you want them in the council itself. And you have the Port Community Council, so they are always solicited, and their recommendation, they made sure that all people who have an interest and stakeholders have a say in the port. Okay. Of course, in the National Port Council, I listed them, but yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm done. If anything else, I'll come back.
Thank you. Yeah, I will be brief, and maybe I will address the question, which is a little bit the elephant in the room and has, been catalyzing all the passionate debates. It's about traffic forecast, right? Traffic forecast, we could spend years discussing it. the idea, and I think maybe this is what you read along the lines of the report, is that at the end of the day, it's a planning decision. It's what do you want to do with the port of Beirut? What role do you want to allocate? We have estimated the traffic forecast. It's a very optimistic estimation because we specifically wanted to demonstrate that you have more than enough space in the port of Beirut, not only to address the commercial and any commodities that will be handled at the port in the long term, 2040. Very difficult to go beyond that, because nobody knows what will happen beyond that. And the space to do something different and to be a fourth generation port for opportunities for Lebanon and for Beirut to generate jobs and other activities in the port. So this is how the traffic forecast was estimated. So in terms of cars, yes, it's very optimistic, and yes, the World Bank, of course. Yeah, no, I know. But I mean, in terms of sizing, we're saying you will never need more than that, and we're recommending to have Ro-Ro and general cargo together, because then there is a flexibility to accommodate if there is a boom in construction in Syria and Lebanon and Iraq, wherever. You have more than enough space if you go with a modern port, with digitalization, with customs which go quickly. But at the end of the day, it comes back to what do you want to do with it, right? If you want to optimize, modernize, there are ways to do it, and it doesn't cost a lot, and then you release space to do something else. And this also responds to the question on corridors, on transit. So in ports design, two types of traffics are very volatile. The first one is transshipment, because transshipment depend on maritime shipping lines. They can decide today to transship in Lebanon and change tomorrow, transship somewhere else. So this is something, unless you offer something super exciting in the port of Beirut, meaning cheap, rapid, they will come to Beirut. Otherwise, they might go and change their mind and go somewhere else. So this we have accommodated for traffic of transshipment based on the discussion we had with the main shipping lines that operate in Lebanon, CMA CGM and others. But this is something that could change tomorrow, and no one can predict it. Same on transit. Transit, especially in this region, the corridors, of course, are dependent on the geopolitical context that nobody can predict, but there is a role, a planning role for the government to decide what to offer in Beirut to capture a maximum of those opportunities on international routes. Same with Syria, the reconstruction of Syria. We have accommodated for traffic for the, and this is the steel calculation, right? For the reconstruction of Syria and Iraq. But you know, Lebanon has never been a transit port. It's not Djibouti, it's not Lomé. Lebanon has a captive traffic because of the big import, and we believe there is a room for, you know, economic diversification and export where the port of Beirut could play a role. Today, it's less than 1%, the transit to Syria. We have accommodated, if I believe, it's very low, but even counting for 10%, which has never been 10%. But there is, quite optimistic scenarios to say the maximum size that you need up to 2040 is this one. So this was really the mindset and the calculation and the way we have accommodated for an optimistic scenario in terms of sizing of the commodities handlings that are needed in the port of Beirut. And it's a bit the same in terms of the vision. Because you asked the question, Hala, of course we can discuss the vision. This was, prepared a bit and endorsed by the Ministry of Transport, and the Urban Lab has also organized the consultations on that. But in a nutshell, we are recommending a system of ports. It's not new ports, it's not new land, it's rehabilitation or development also within the same, because you can optimize within the same footprint the role of the ports, but yes, with a little bit of redundancy. Now, and this is also the principles of the fourth generation of port, which is a network of port, not anymore only a node. So for example, Tripoli has a role also to play for transit to Syria, not only Beirut. And also it's important because of climate change, because of possible external shock, to have a bit of redundancy in the port system. It doesn't mean, to build an entire coastline of ports, but Zahrani, it's more yeah, it's for oil. It's a really specialized port. Yes. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, this. Hala, I'm done. I look forward to hearing the other questions.
And the first basin, can you just elaborate?
So on the first basin, it is not within the perimeter of the technical assistance. We understand that the land has already, so it is occupied today by the military base. And there are plans already for this basin, so we haven't included in the scope of the study and the recommendations. It's drawn, those are the plans we took, I think from Solidaire, the plans that they have for this basin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regarding your optimistic forecasts, the problem is that it has been interpreted by the French people like immediate emergency thing to be done and executed during the next 5 years. So they want to do 14 hectares Ro-Ro parking in 5 years and put the money on it as an emergency. I mean, when you do projections, optimistic, usually you do an optimistic, you do a pessimistic, you do a middle. Here you open the way for interpretations that are terrible. I'm sorry.
I ask to hear from Mr. Rahal if it's possible to tell us where is the project at today, the World Bank project.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I think as Anne-Cécile said, it's 3 pillars. The first one, which is the sector law, I think it's been actually submitted by the Council of Ministers to the Parliament, I think, for discussion. Vision has already been approved. As far as the third pillar of the study prepared by I think we were actually in close coordination and discussion with the World Bank team. Definitely, the World Bank, there was some guidance from the ministry to the World Bank on how the way they would like actually the port to be done. They don't want to go into a master plan with a lot of things. And I think the World Bank, I think the outcome of the development plans or the scenarios they proposed was not in full agreement or with full objectives with the minister. For this reason, I think we had a couple of issues that we did not actually accept. And I think the minister personally said, I think this master plan should be in line with our way to see the port. The World Bank had a different, actually, the way things has to be done. One of the issues, the grain terminal, we disagreed to have actually the mall 3 to have the grain terminal there. We would like to keep it here. The port. I don't want to go into the details. I'm saying generally. I think I prefer Anne-Cécile to lead the discussions. But what I'm saying, it was one of the issues that we would like to keep the silos on Mall 2. We don't want actually the grain terminal, and it's not our view as well. It's the view of the people who are managing the terminal, the port at the moment. They would like to keep it for the general cargo and other things as well. They don't want to get rid of this small 3 for the grain terminal, and these are the few. What is the status? As I think our director said here, it's a point of view that the World Bank actually has proposed, and it is for discussion. It's definitely different than what the French did. The French actually, they were doing some proposals for a better operation and roads, doing things, doing some repairs, doing some actually investigations on the status of the walls that we have. So basically, the scope of work of the French was totally different than the World Bank, and I think we did work quite hard with the World Bank. Definitely, the views are a little bit different on some of the aspects, and I think, this is for discussion. It's not going to happen tomorrow, and I think there is quite a lot of experts here. They probably will take it further, and probably we will have something which is definitely probably better or more efficient than what the plans are now.
I'm sorry, I have to answer. ما تواخذنا يعني. The decision was taken by the minister and by the port authority. The minister has resigned. The ministry has no legal capacity today except ruling, managing current issues, not deciding on such big issues like the future of the port. The Port Authority has no legal status today. You know very well that it's a legal void. How can these people alone in a closed small office decide? Besides, while the majority of the people here, professionals, without discussing, neither with the professionals nor with civil society. How is this possible in our country? There is a law in our country which is the Heritage Impact Assessment for every project. Did you do a Heritage Impact Assessment? The Heritage Impact Assessment in the law requires public hearing, public discussion. Has this been done? No. So what I am saying is that this is, the decision, for example, to put the grain silo on Mall 2 where it was, is totally illogical. It cost $60 million just to create K9. Is it a priority today? Is it there that we should put our money? These are issues that are important, essential. If there is a political decision to say we want to erase the memory of the blast, this is a political decision. But the civil society does not want. This blast is a catastrophe. A catastrophe that, for all of us. How can some people, a group of people in an office say, we want to erase the memory of the blast? How is this possible?
No, nobody said this. Actually, I came over here not to go for any discussions, but I think the statement you said is not right. Nobody said we are going to erase or we are not going to have a memorial on the port. The minister did not say it, and I think the World Bank are actually, they can actually tell you this. We are with the memorial, but I think, probably where they put the memorial we have a different view on this. And you are talking about, I think this is not going for construction now. I think the minister still actually, he is actually on the top of the ministry. He has, with his team, views on this. And this was not endorsed, and it's not going into construction. It is still under discussion. And when it goes under, you probably, you have the right to say so. There is a team at the ministry, and they are experts as well. And I think, you know, the World Bank had a lot of discussions with the civil society and with all the stakeholders on the ports, and they took their views, and we were actually in close discussions with them, and this is actually what the case is. Thank you. Okay?
Just a small question to the team of the World Bank. Just a small question concerning this.
Let us open it, please. We have the 5:30 only. There are a lot of people in this. Can I see, please, arms are circling the mic? I suggest we're going to take rounds of questions. Please introduce yourself to the speakers. Please introduce yourself to the and ask short questions if possible, so we can hear from everybody.
المهندس شربل ابو جودي. انتم بتعرفوا انا عامل ديزاين جديد لبور بيروت. ونحن الفيجن تبعنا بور تدمر. صح. بورنا تدمر مش نرده مثل ما كان. كل العالم عم تعمل ريت ضخمه وعملاقه لحالها. هلا هي العلاقه القوه والاقتصاد كله على البورات. عامل بروجي اكيد ما بدي رقع بور بيروت ورده مثل ما كان. عامل بروجي يليق بلبنان، بعتقد لازم نشرح لكم اياه مطولا. اكيد نحن زحنا السنسول كله، عملنا بور عملاق سياحي، عملنا منطقه سياحيه ضخمه، ردينا السياحه على بيروت وكل المناطق، عملنا منطقه اقتصاديه كمان. غير هيدي لازم نشرحها لوحده. اخذنا برج حمود بجديده.
في سؤال؟
نحن هيدا بلدنا ومش رح نتركه مدمر. صح.
في سؤال لحدا نعمل معروف.
بوجود قناة السويس هلا البور العملاق الضخم اللي عم يعملوا 60 مليون متر، يلي هو سبب حرب غزة هلا تيعملوا خط بنغوريون تياخذوا هالاقتصاد كله. إذا عملوا هالبورات العملاقة كلها سوا ومعه حق النقيب، إذا ما عملنا الخط اللبناني السوري الكويت، إذا ما عملنا الخط الاقتصادي يلي أنا قدمته كمان من بيروت وسوريا على الكويت، من الكويت والعراق الفاو، ونرجع ننزل فيه على السعودية قطر دبي، يكون هيدا باراليل للخط السعودي يلي الإماراتي على حيفا، ما رح نجيب الشغل لنا. نحن بدنا نخطط لبلدنا، بدنا نخطط فيجن للبعيد.
بعتقد وصلت الفكرة. ميرسي كثير. تفضل.
Hello, Alain Wakim, urban planner and architect. I think we need to put things in context a little bit to agree on what we are discussing here. First, in terms of mandates, is it the mandate of the World Bank team to plan for Beirut and the entire country? I don't think so. I think their scope of work is it's rather small technical assistance limited to the perimeter of the port itself. So we have to ask ourselves, is addressing issues in relation to connectivity, urban planning, transport planning, economics, and so on, is part of their scope or not? I'm not taking your defense, but I mean, we're all professionals here and we have to be realistic. This is one thing.
Thank you.
Now, no, I have a question. So definitely we would want to resolve these issues, actually, because we see that this study or similar studies are an opportunity to address these issues that we're somehow incapable of resolving, actually. So a national vision for the ports should be coordinated with a national vision for the Lebanese territory, or an economic national vision. Did this effort happen, for instance? And again, this is up to the Lebanese authority and the ministry to decide and to answer. And it's part of the mandate of the ministry itself. Planning, urban planning, national planning is the competence of the same ministry. So has the ministry done such an effort, or at least mandated the World Bank or other agencies or organisms to plan in coordination the port of Beirut in relation to the city of Beirut? And I would say, in terms of vision, it should be part of a wider national vision. We cannot discuss the port of Beirut and Beirut only from a port terminal, from a container terminal or other technical details. You should be taken to a higher level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take the sir here, and I have several hands, and then I need to give back the floor.
Yes, good morning. I'm Rabia Sabra. I'm the Director General of the Chamber of Commerce in Beirut. Well, thank you for this important discussion group, because it helps reviving the idea about the presence of the port of Beirut and its importance for the Lebanese economy. I have two questions. The first, I haven't noticed in the council for the port the presence of the directly concerned stakeholders, who are the importers, exporters, manufacturers. Because I saw public representatives, etc. This is crucial that these people sit on the council because they are directly concerned. And all of these are gathered under the umbrella of the Chamber of Beirut. The second question is about how could we put a strategy, a long-term strategy for the port of Beirut within a very unstable local environment and geopolitical. And I put an example, the issue of the Captagon and the problems of exporting our products to our traditional markets, which are the Gulf countries, the Gaza war and the perception of the Israeli-Arab relations, the issue of Iran-Syria conflict, etc. So, although any plan for the port of Beirut requires a new president, government, and etc., but the role and the strategy for the port should be not rigid and set for a very long term. Thank you.
Thank you. The sir in the back, sorry, and I know, I see all of the hands,
okay.
but trying to...
Thank you. My name is Nasif Saleh. I'm a ship agent. We've been stakeholders in the port. We helped to fight years back not to fill basin number 4. A quick thing on the activity of the port. You said in this drawing you have decreased the berthing opportunities for ships. The waterfront, I believe, should be the whole of the container terminal, because that small container terminal on the quay should not only be used for the cruise ships. I have not seen any buildings like terminals for arrivals, departures, parking lots for cars, buses. There you can probably have an access by the Beiruti community. It's important to keep basin number 1 to the army, simply for security purposes at this stage. Decree number 9040 states that this is part of the public domain and should not be touched. Even if there has been some land being sold there, it's somehow illegal. To go back to the report, I've not seen anything talking about the one port authority like in all the ports and airports in the world. And I'm afraid we have lots of reservations on the law and the way it has been stipulated by creating National Council, Regulatory Authority, Port and Harbor Companies. We're just employing people who most of the time know nothing about managing ports, know nothing about any of the activities of the ports. Those need professionals. And on top of that, they're every time relating and having the oversight by politicians, whether it's minister or the prime minister. And you know, when you're have those names, we're going back and playing in the hands of the local political establishment, which has been there for many years. Thank you.
Thank you. Nahid Al-Khalil, please.
يعطيكم العافية، بس مضطرة أحكي عن الإهراءات. بدي أحكي قوانين وحكومة، بدكم تعطوني بس شي 3 دقايق إذا ممكن، وموجه الحديث كمان لممثل وزارة الأشغال. بس بحب أقول أنا هون لازم الكل يعرف والبنك الدولي أنه في قرار من وزير الثقافة بأذار 2022 إدراج الإهراءات على لائحة الجرد لحمايتها. دغري الحكومة من بعدها بأقل من شهر أصدرت بهدم الإهراءات بشكل متسرع. قدموا أهالي الضحايا طبعاً مع المفكرة القانونية والحملة التضامنية لحماية الإهراءات بدعم من نقابة المهندسين 3 طعون بحزيران 2022 قدام مجلس شورى الدولة لأبطال قرار الحكومة. شورى الدولة بكانون الثاني قرر التريث، طلب من الحكومة تبدي الرأي ويوقفوا قرار الهدم. الحكومة ما عملت شيء. بهالوقت كمان بيضغطوا على وزير الثقافة لحتى يتراجع عن حماية الإهراءات. بترجع رئيس الحكومة بيبعت من وراء الضغط ومن وراء قرار مجلس الشورى، بعدين مؤخراً بيبعت لوزير الأشغال أنه يشتغل على التنسيق مع وزير الثقافة لاعتماد وضعه على لائحة الجرد. فهون كان في دور لوزارة الأشغال وما لعبت بدورها وزارة الأشغال. بحب أنا أسمع من هون، وأنا بوافق على كل اللي قالوا شو دور وزارة الأشغال وشو دور الوزارات. منه شغلتهم هن يعملوا مخططات توجيهية ولا حتى رؤى، ولا حتى هن شغلتهم بس يعني operational. وشكرا.
شكرا ناهدة. يعني this shows how much people need to speak about this. I'm really struggling to try to take everyone. Can we have the room for 10 more minutes? Yes? Okay, so if we can, can we have 10 more minutes? Thank you. I will hear from Cynthia Bouon, please, then Mr. Tamam Naqash, then, yes, I'm trying to organize the debate, and Soham Naimni in the back.
I'm Cynthia Bouon. I'm an architect and the research coordinator at the Beirut Urban Lab. I have 2 very short questions, one about the law, one about the master plan. So actually they are connected. If I understood well, you said that for this master plan to be approved, it needs the law to be enacted. And so with the current framework, it's not possible to have this, because it doesn't mean we only need the approval of the Ministry of Public Works, but also the Parliament, which will make the process very long. And my question about the plan, I see that it's a space allocation, but for me it's very vague. I would like to know more, what are the activities that were imagined for the waterfront? And I see a short to mid-term land reserve. Did you do in your market sounding, did you see what are the investments that are possible and how will it generate income for the city? Will the city of Beirut take advantage of the funds, a little portion, or it's only a return of investment on the port? Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning. I am Mazen Basbous. I would like to thank you for this presentation, which addresses the output of the World Bank project, which initiated after the explosion in Beirut port, which addresses the reform, recovery, and development, and the vision for 2040. But what is missing is the most important part, is the security issues. The implementation of the ISPS code. And if the ISPS code was implemented in Beirut port before the 4th of August, there was no explosion in Beirut port. What's the ISPS code? It's a code added to the Solace Convention after 9/11 in order to prevent security issues in ports and on board ships. So, were the part of security in this plan? And ISPS code assign one person who is responsible about security and the measures in Beirut port. We didn't see any plan about
Thank
the
you.
important issue.
Please, can you give the mic? Yes, to Ali.
Yes, thank you, Mona. Actually, I have one question relating to the geopolitical context. My name is Ali Darwish. I'm not an urban planner. I'm an activist, let's say like this. I'm a livestock herder. No, I'm joking. Sorry, what? What did you say? Actually, I will not comment on the design. I think everything in this good drawing here, colors, can be discussed and changed and manipulated. The question is to the World Bank, because we have actually a bad experience, and I'm saying it bluntly, with the World Bank experience, with the World Bank trials in Lebanon, trials. What is, or where is the land transport network that will give all this port its importance in terms of the geopolitics? When we're talking about Haifa, yeah, within a couple of months, I think a road was opened reaching Jabal Ali or even further. Where is, and I know that there is a land transport project by the World Bank in Lebanon, of which $10 million were spent in the last 4 years or 3 years ago to give food assistance through FAO, just to pinpoint where the money went. And there is money left. What is the World Bank doing, or what's the plan of the World Bank regarding the land transport sector, the land transport network, that will link this port to its geographical extension? Because, frankly speaking, I don't want to see another Bisri fiasco. And for that, we have
Please, can you
time to discuss.
Can you
Thank
give the mic to Mr. Tamam Naqash?
The question of the type of port has been an issue since the expiry of the concession that was, Port of Beirut was a concession. And there were, I know of 3 studies that were done around the year 2001, 2002, one by Randall Tritton, one by BCOM, the French, and one by Team International and Catram. Now, to make a long story short, the BCOM and the Team Catram proposals for the kind of port was the landlord port, exactly as this study set up. But the big question is that happened in 2002, and now we are 2024, and the issue of finding a permanent solution for the institutional structure of the port has not been settled through those 20 years, except when the explosion happened, then it revived the issue. So my question, it's not a question, probably a recommendation that I have learned myself going through several studies for Lebanon. It's not enough to say this is what needs to be done. We need also to say what are the enablers that this will happen and what are the prerequisites for success. If we don't address this, it might not be part of the terms of reference of the study itself, but whoever is taking care of this should keep that in mind. This a little bit connects with the project law that is being discussed. I have not seen the project law itself, but I hope if there are things in it to make it implementable, like if it needs implementation decrees, those decrees be part of the law itself, because I have multiple examples where very fine laws were passed through Parliament, but they needed implementation decrees, and the implementation decrees never get issued. And the legislators and the government find it easy to pass laws because they know they will not have to implement them because they can block the implementation decrees. This is one issue that I would like to see. Now, another thing, few things I hoped to read in the study or to listen about. You touched upon logistics, which is very important, but the limited area for the port is very tight, and probably you need to have a logistics area somewhere outside this limit. And I don't know, when you were doing the study for Beirut, were you told by anybody that since it is port of Beirut, it should be limited to the area to the west of River Beirut, within the Muhafaza of Beirut? I mean, we are restricting ourselves into a small area, while the development of a port should not be restricted because of administrative boundaries. This is another issue. And one more thing, I haven't read in the report, I couldn't find the word railroad. Aren't you aware that Beirut Port is connected by a rail right-of-way that goes to NBT? And there is a tunnel that was preserved when the design was made for the bridge that goes from Ashrafiyya to Bush Hamoud. So there is the right-of-way, there is a tunnel under that. Why aren't we considering railroad? The word railroad did not appear in any of the reports I've read about that. This is enough for now.
Thank you very much. Soham Naimni in the back, I'm going to collect questions just because everybody is so engaged in this project and in this proposal. It is a testimony of how many people feel that this is their project, their proposal. And I hope that the minister will take into consideration our proposal from the beginning to establish a permanent council, not only public hearings that happen when we push for them, but to have a regular communication with people who are not only expert in this, but also engaged in wanting to advance the values that I presented in the beginning. Soham Naimni.
I have two questions, but before I ask my questions, I just want to point out one thing. Because, Mona, you talked about the minister did not adopt this master plan, actually, in the conference that was held in March, although he claimed that he collaborated with the World Bank on the master plan, and technically speaking, honestly, it's better than the other plans that we've seen so far. There's part of the port that's open to the city and somehow integrates with the neighborhoods that are surrounding the port. I know that it requires a lot of amendment, but it's good for us to know that this plan was not adopted. On the contrary, it was disregarded. The first question I have is regarding the port company. You mentioned a port company. Why do we need a port company? This is my first question. Knowing that we have a public procurement entity that was recently established and it runs all the bids, it ensures transparency and everything related to the private sector and the bidding processes and tendering processes. My second question is related to the law that was proposed. I believe that it gives a lot of power and authority to the Minister of Public Works and Transport, while at the same time we're talking about removing power from political influence. So knowing that this minister belongs to the same political party that has MPs in the parliament that are accused of playing part in the largest explosion in the history of Lebanon. So considering this conflict, are there other ways for us to consider a law that can be proposed that does not give a lot of authority to this political class? Can we give more power to the municipality of Beirut, for example, or other public authorities that are in the Lebanese government? Thank you.
Bashir Mjais, and then the last word. Yes, Ren, please, here.
Hello everyone, my name is Bashir Mjais. I'm the head of planning and design division at Solidaire, so thank you for inviting me. and I'm a teacher at Alba University. We met so many times with the local consultants that were appointed by the World Bank 2 years ago to discuss about a real integration between the port and the city. We had so many ideas that were put on the table, despite all critics that we have, or some of you have, towards the master plan of the downtown, but at least there were ideas that were put on the table to connect with the urban fabric and the public space that has been done in the city center. A major point was regarding Martyr Square, which is still unfortunately on hold for many reasons. The first basin, which is a big issue, and it was a totally open discussion with the World Bank by giving them all the plans that we had to create a real integration. Unfortunately, when we received the master plan, we saw a zoning plan with a limit. Ali Aboud talked about a one-way relationship with the port. It has to go in both ways. It's a big disappointment because I don't think we understood the real importance of opening up again the port to the city and vice versa. At the beginning, we talked about لا تكرهوا شرا لعله مش خيرا, but again, it is an opportunity to open up these subjects that are crucial and not to get answers like, oh, it's just a preliminary phase, or it's just a bubble diagram, and we will do it in the next phase, because there will not be next phase for the World Bank, unfortunately. So I hope that in the new plan that we will see on Thursday, we will be able to talk really about crucial things about how to connect the port with Beirut. Thank you.
It's not the World Bank.
I know. I was talking about the consultants who were appointed by the World Bank 2 years ago. And we saw what happened with this. And unfortunately, it was a big disappointment for us. So let's see what will happen on Thursday. Thank you.
30 seconds to Antoine before I give back the floor for quick replies, and we need to close.
Thank you.
I mean, you can just make comments. This is an open discussion. It's
Simple
continuing
question.
on Thursday. Please, Antoine.
Can you please explain a bit the environmental and climate adaptation considerations for the plan? Thank you.
Thank you. I will just pass the mic for whoever would like to comment on key issues, knowing that we're continuing the conversation on Thursday with the second proposal, which is called the French proposal. I'm still confused why is it called the French, so I'm looking forward to hear about it and to understand what is it. We will.
Honestly, I don't know what to answer now, but just 2 or 3 things. You cannot have a law without an oversight of the ministry. It doesn't happen, okay? Regardless, I'm not making a political statement. I'm just telling you facts. You have to have an oversight of the ministry. This is impossible. And I'm going to reiterate what I said before. If you compare it to other laws, they have relinquished a lot of powers, which doesn't happen often in Lebanon. So just to make that clear. Why do you have a company? Because it's a landlord port model, and you want a private company to operate smoothly, more efficiently than a public entity. So you have a private company owned by the states, but it operates more efficiently. I'm not sure. And the other, you have representations. They kept on saying, but we have not listed the representation. I'm not aware of anything else I should answer. I will give the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question and comments. Maybe just a couple of clarifications in terms of the National Ports Vision, the National Development Plan, the SDATEL was taken into account in the proposal and the recommendations. So this is just to clarify. In terms of prerequisites on the law, it's just to allow the activities on the landlord port model to be able to function. So this is why we have...
It's not legally linked. It's not legally linked, but you can have a law without a master plan. But you need the law, exactly. Legally, there's no linkage.
The plan is a plan, but then if you want to have activities that function on the landlord-port model, then you need the law to be enacted, right? In terms of the activities, so we have done some market sounding and a reality check on the plan, which is those are recommended land use plans. It's not a detailed plan. I have to say it will come in the next phases. It will, but there is more work that is needed. So we have recommended. So our technical assistance has ended, and this is a consolidation of the recommendation. But of course, there is a need for more detailed study, feasibility studies, studies with integration. No, it wasn't in the scope. No. So the level of detail is a reality check, right, that we have provided for the sizing, the layout, and the activities that are proposed in the plan. In terms of processes, security, etc., those are addressed in the digitalization recommendation. We have published a note. This was back in 2021. Yes, I think I will stop there.
I am the Mushaghebe. I just want, because the World Bank is here, because Ali mentioned the fiascos, I'll mention one of the latest fiascos. The neighborhood initiative at AUB was essential in the project Rubble to Mountains. We collected all the rubble of the explosion in that land right under the D truck parking, and we worked for 2 years, and we brought Canadian experts. We paid $200,000 from our funding, and we had 9 meetings with the World Bank, including Mrs. Lamia Mansour, online, in person. We worked with UN Habitat and UNICEF. We got a crusher from UNICEF for $1,800,000. It's rusting in the municipality parking because the World Bank decided that it's not, they didn't trust our procedure and our reports. They gave it to UNDP on the table in the governor's office in February 2023 in the presence of UNDP. I forget the name of this person. Anyway, and they promised that they would repeat the tests that they thought that were not trustworthy by the 4th leader in asbestos-contaminated companies in Canada. And they promised in the governor's office that in 1 month and a half, they will have everything functional. It's been 1 year and 6 months. You have $1,800,000 set for this, and the asbestos-contaminated trash is still there. Please follow up on your projects, because when you do things, when you disregard local expertise, it's not nice.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for their engagement. We're closing the session. You want to say a few words? Okay, I've said my words. So we have a super wasta.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you all for being here. So I'm sorry, because we have to be a little bit disciplined with time, because we have other events and other engagements. مرحبا سعادة النائب. So just very quickly, because I wanted to close this first session by saying, and this is for you, Manahalla, partly, this subject is infinite. It will never end, and this is why it's important. I said it in my welcoming note. This issue opens on a lot of topics. So the issue is open. The discussion will continue on Thursday, so you're invited to come and prolong your questions here. And we will not solve it on Thursday, okay? It's open. This is a way to say why, as director, I'm director of IFI, I'm happy with this first day. First of all, I'm happy with the full house here. I thank you all for your presence. I didn't imagine that we will have such a success. But I'm happy also for 2 main reasons, and these are my words of conclusion. First of all, as most of you have said, we're not technicians, we're not urban planners. I'm not. I'm a supposedly a political scientist. Sorry? Yeah, no, I mean, this is, no, but Mona, I'm sorry. This is not a technical issue. This is an issue of policy, okay? And this is what we do here in this building. Policy is about many things, but mainly it's about 2 things. It's about talking about public goods, les biens communs, and it's also talking about options, okay? We don't have the definitive truth. We talk about options, we put options on the table, we enlighten the debate, and we help stir the debate between policymakers and the general public on options that are finally the choice of people, okay? Ultimately, people will choose how they want to organize their lives with MPs and others. So this is why I think that this debate was an example, a perfect example of a policy debate whereby options are discussed with stakeholders. And this is why, besides thanking my partners in this operation, Jad Thabit, the Beirut Urban Lab, Hala Younis and the Arab Center for Architects, our colleagues at AUB, I want to very sincerely and very wholeheartedly thank Jean-Christophe Carré and you, Mrs. Said, for accepting to play the game. You could have said, we're not interested. We did the project, it's not of your business, and we go on, okay? So your acceptance is a pillar of what we do here, meaning discussing options and public policies, okay? So thank you wholeheartedly. Second motive for joy this morning is that this topic, it may seem remote from what we do here at IFI. However, it's not at all. What we do here at IFI, and this is maybe an announcement, we're now starting to deploy our activities on 3 pillars, on 3 levels. One, which is exactly the one we are doing this morning, having to do with the issues of sustainability. How do we live? How can we live better on the environmental level, on the economic level, on the energy level, on the urban comfort level, etc., etc. The second pillar, skip it more quickly, is more political. It's about political forces, how we build a state or we stop destroying a state, etc., etc. And the third one is regional and international, meaning the geopolitics. However, as you have noticed, they are not unrelated. When we talk about the port of Beirut, we are talking about a port important on the Mediterranean. We are talking about connectivity. We are talking about globalization. We are talking about the place of Beirut on the map. We are talking about a political topic, a geopolitical topic, and a technical, allow me, Mona, technical in the noble sense of the term, topic. So this is why also I'm very happy, because this is at the core of what we do at AUB, and we will do it better, and this is my final word, with your engagement, various stakeholders. As Jean-Christophe has already mentioned, we do a lot of other things with the World Bank, with other partners on the economic crisis, on the restructuring, etc. We will pursue these things on many other levels that seem unconnected. The port, Beirut circulation, Mr. Nakash, I sent you a message during the session to tell you that I want to talk about that, about our environment, about the way we live and the choices we make for ourselves. Thank you very much. Incredibly huge thanks. And I hope to see the same crowd here on Thursday. Thank you very much. Various stakeholders. As Jean-Christophe has already mentioned, we do a lot of other things with the